Here we are, welcome to the amazing sights of the Temple Mount. Having a little bit of a look around through the old city of Jerusalem. These are some of the fantastic sights that you can see. Come on a journey with us this morning as we walk down through the Temple Mount. The oldest version of the Bible had a little palace where he could stop overnight. Whoever interprets the dream has incredible power. If you're going from Jerusalem to Jericho or vice versa, you stop somewhere here and rest overnight. Near the caves where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. This is actually a pagan type place. It's a very likely place where Peter preached his first sermon. Some very significant, important events happen at this location. Hey everyone, here I am, Dr. Brennan Roach at the Mount of Olives. Very exciting start to the day, to our tour here that we're live streaming from Jerusalem every single day. This is the day before we start the dig, so I thought I'd bring you up to the Mount of Olives and we'd have a little bit of a look around here, and we'd see a little bit of the great views and the great testimony of the biblical stories of what actually happened up here on the Mount of Olives. It is a really windy morning, so we'll get straight into it, and we'll see how it goes. So the Mount of Olives is a prominent ridge overlooking the Temple Mount on the east side of Jerusalem, and it is an amazingly significant part of all the biblical stories. So much of the New Testament, so much of the Old Testament, that we see the stories revolving around the Mount of Olives. The surrounding landscape, we sort of, as we we'll make our way down from here over the next few days, and we'll teach some lessons and some stories about what's actually happening here. As a pivotal location in the spiritual and historical fabric of Jerusalem, the Mount of Olives serves as a living testament to the city's deep-rooted spiritual heritage. It offers profound spiritual lessons, inviting visitors and pilgrims to come and reflect and just get a great view of what the actual city would have been like during the time here at Jerusalem. There are so many events that happened here on the Mount of Olives or close by. It was the place where the disciples would come and they would stop on their way to Jerusalem on pilgrimage. During the big city festivals, it would be the place where so many pilgrims, thousands of pilgrims, would come and sleep or come in their place to visit. It was a great spot to overlook the Temple Mount, to even look towards the temple, see all of those fantastic things. What happened here? We see the ascension happen here in the region towards Bethany. We see what we call the Olivet Discourse of Matthew chapter 24 to 25. We see the events on the Mount of Olives, and what I want to talk a little bit about today is the cursing of the fig tree. So the cursing of the tree is a story that really helps with our perspective once we're here and we can see and we can understand what's actually happening here on the Mount of Olives, and Jesus is walking to and from and coming backwards and forwards. From where we are now, it's about 1 to 1.5 kilometre walk to the Temple Mount area, and this was a place that people would come and they would sit, and as they're journeying from outside or even close by Bethany and different places, they would be revolving and sitting around here, and they would be in a perfect line of sight as they're coming to Jerusalem. The cursing of the fig tree by Jesus is one of the most curious events of Jesus' ministry. Jesus is walking from Jerusalem, gets hungry, goes to a fig tree when it's a season for figs, and he finds no figs on the fig tree and he curses it and it dies. This is one of the most curious teachings that Jesus has. So what are we to make of Jesus? Is he a tree killer? Is he stealing fruit from an orchard like many of us did when we were kids? Is he an irrational? Is he hangry? Is he gets angry when he's hungry? What did the poor tree do to encounter such a fate? The curious story is all about being fit for purpose. Fig trees produce fruit in season. If the fig tree does not produce fruit in season, it has no useful purpose. The fig tree that Jesus was walking towards had a spectacular and beautiful Jerusalem temple of God in its background. It was pure white, covered in gold, and the jewels glistened in the morning sun, like we can see here with the morning sun. People from all around the world come to see the beauty and the majesty of the temple. So Jesus was teaching here that the temple's purpose was to connect with God. People need to look beyond the veil and be able to find God. No facade, no matter how beautiful it is not fit for purpose of God. If I cannot worship God and cannot be forgiven in the temple, then what's its purpose? So the priesthood that was serving God at this particular moment in time had come corrupt. The temple itself had no purpose anymore. It wasn't producing the fruit that it was expected to produce. So this is a metaphor of the temple, of what's happening here in the temple. So what can we learn from? So we have two clear lessons that we can learn from this. That God has designed each and every one of us to be fruitful and multiply according to Genesis chapter 1. And the second thing is how it is unless the activities of God are contained therein. So this is not a teaching or an understanding by Jesus that the temple has no worth, it has no value. Its worth and its value is based on the idea of what is actually happening inside of the temple. So that's incredibly important. So we just don't look at the outside, but we look at the inside. The world is expert at looking at the outside to determine the beauty of something and the glory of something and the majesty of the something and the things that we see, which are incredibly important. We get drawn in by that. We get drawn in. It's important to have a service that's drawing people in. But what's also important, that what are we drawing them into? We are drawing them into the worship. We are drawing them into the presence of God. And it doesn't matter how we paint our buildings, how we make our buildings look, how spectacular the worship is, if the worship does not contain the Holy Spirit, then how beautiful the facade is. If the worship of God is not present within that facade, then it is worship that is worthless. It doesn't matter how much money has been spent on it, it's worthless. So it's important for us to understand that the temple, what Jesus is teaching here, that first we must see the fruitfulness of God, the worship of God. The Gethsemane and the Church of All Nations, we're right by a busy road, so you'll be able to hear the noises, but you just see the magnificence of the olive tree here. Some around about 2,000 years old and still growing, and really special in this time that actually a lot of the olives are starting to, you can see the fruit on the olive trees, and it's an amazing place to be here in the Garden of Gethsemane, the church of it we can see here in the garden. You can see that massive trunk, and it gives you some sort of idea of the trees and the olive trees that were here in the Garden of Gethsemane. As we can see, there's plenty of olives on the olive trees. Just so cool. Hopefully you can get a good view of how fruitful these olive trees are. Just keep on producing fruit season after season after season.